Welcome to the Creative Push, an intimate and diverse artist interview series. I'm Sherry O'Neill, a photographer, artist, writer, and educator. Here, artists and makers of all kinds share tips, advice, knowledge, and inspiration that you can learn from each week. This series is a part of the Learn and Create platform to help artists further their education in creativity, art, and business. Welcome to the Creative Push. This week we have Jeremy Lister. He is a singer and a songwriter. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about your musical career.
Yeah, I grew up in a very musical family. My mom's side, all singers, musicians. My granddad, he sang with Elvis. Elvis wanted to be in the group that he was in. They were a Memphis-based gospel quartet called the Blackwood Brothers, and he was the high tenor. So everyone in that side of the family, are just bless your heart, good old gospel singing, great with harmony folks. He was singing all the way up until he was 93. He had a little nursing home market. It was really, really sweet. I was really fortunate. I got a video of us singing I'll Fly Away together about a year before he passed away. So I'm really glad we got to do some singing in his last days. My dad is also a great singer. He had a guitar at the house. He was very particular about his things. I would go sneak it out of his case and learn how to play guitar. Finally, he got tired of me sneaking into it and got me a guitar of my own.
How old were you when he got your first guitar?
I was probably in the middle of high school. I grew up in a city called Madison, 30 minutes outside of Jackson, out in the country. Dad was a preacher, a music minister at the time. In that environment too, I was around a lot of music. I would sit next to my mom and she sang alto. She has like this very beautiful Karen Carpenter-esque voice. So she would be singing the hymns and all of the alto lines. And I would just listen to her and sing what she was singing at a really, really early age. And then the first time I auditioned for children's choir, they would play, just play something simple on the piano to see if you could match the pitches. And I would, just do a harmony line to it. And they were like, how are you doing that? I was like, I don't know. It's just what mom does. I guess I was learning how things sounded matched up against each other. So even at an early age, I was kind of learning harmony without realizing I knew it. One of my fondest Christmas memories, they got me a really nice trombone. I've been playing this starter trombone in band for a while. They had saved up a lot of money, got me a really nice Bach trigger trombone, had a scavenger hunt for me around the house to go find it. That was really, really special. Two brothers, my older brother, Richie, and he's been my croonie and bandmate and all the different projects I've been in since childhood. And then my baby brother, he's 10 years younger than me, so he was like my play toy as a kid. I moved out of the house and my parents moved to South Carolina with him, and lo and behold, he turned out to be a pretty good musician too. He's a great drummer, really, really good singer. At one point, all three of us were in the a cappella group Street Corner Symphony as well.
What brought you to Nashville?
I had done some recording I was in a band, a promising rock band. I dropped out of college to join a band called Geronimo Rex as their lead singer, and it was like a progressive rock meets the Beatles. We were actually quite good for being in our late teens, early 20s. But we would do songs in odd time signatures with these really catchy melodies and harmonies and things like that. Sort of plateaued in central Mississippi as far as we were going to get to. And I knew I wanted to continue doing music, but I'd never really been like, I want to be a star. I want to go somewhere where I can have a following and build a career in music. All the way through high school, I was a huge fan of Jeff Buckley. And I was like, I want that sort of career. Because it was funny because no one at the time really knew who he was. He had like this sort of cult following. He passed away and kind of an iconic figure. So I moved to Nashville in 2003 as sort of a stepping stone to New York. I was going to try to go to New York, get in the art scene. When I moved here, things just started rapidly happening in a very good way. I got agent interest, a label interest. Within my third day here, actually, I did this writers showcase. I met the people who would be my first band. I met the person who would introduce me to my first agent. It was pretty wild. In a year or two, I had some label interest. I was getting flown all across the country, Capitol and Atlantic, and finally ended up signing for Warner Brothers in the middle of, I think it was 2005. I learned a whole lot. That for about 5 years, I was with them, but it was a very typical record deal for back in the day. Getting signed was a huge thing, but then once you're signed, actually getting the green light where they push you and really, really work you is like a whole new level or tier you kind of get pushed to. I loved my A&R guy. At the time, there was a lot of people worried about losing their job constantly. So he was just like, oh gosh, everything I would turn in. He's like, keep writing, keep writing. I think the first year I was signed, I wrote like 200 songs for them. And then I also had signed a publishing deal with Warner Chappell Music. And they sort of worked together with the new 360 deal they had back. That was a brand new thing back in the day. The next year, I probably wrote another 100 songs. And I was like, when are we going to put out an album? I've written more than enough songs. They're like, you're getting there, keep writing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is nuts. And a lot of things also were tied up financially. I wouldn't get paid the big advance until they released an album. I was just writing like crazy, trying to get things going. Finally, in 2007, they released a 4-song EP, which didn't count as an album. I was like, okay, at least we're releasing something. And that was the Just One Day EP. Sort of hit this little stagnant period for a while. And then I finally got together with some friends of mine. And the cool thing about all that time period, they flew me to London to work with a producer. I was working with Martin Tereff there. They flew me to Los Angeles to work with Greg Wells and Kevin Griffin and really big names, people that I loved a lot. And I learned a whole lot. I was also co-writing a lot, which I had not done that much before. I was learning a lot about my craft, which is serving me very, very well today. But at the time, I was just so frustrated. I was like, will they ever release this album and get me going? I partnered up with 2 young buddies of mine, Ian Fitchick and Justin Laux, and then recorded The Bed You Made for nothing. The buddy deal. Got some of my friends here in town who are now the A-list players. Ian Fitchick won Album of the Year for producing Casey Musgraves 2 years ago. And it's funny, these are the people I was telling my label about. Like, these people are great. And they're like, whatever. Now they are the best of the best. It's really, really cool to watch that happen. Know someone early on and sort of see the talent level and watch them rise in this career. Finished The Bed You Made, went to LA to showcase it for the president of the label. They're like, we love it. We love it. We're going to put it out. And then probably not even a month after that, I get word from my management at the time. The head of the label is about to leave. He's going to resign from his job. So I was like, oh no. That meant that my album was just going to be shelved. I'd worked so hard. I'd gone through a lot of life experience on that album. It was really, really personal to me. Fortunately, my management was friends with the president of the label, and they gave me the album back. It's yours. So I was like, wow, thank you. But no one was really there to push it. But at least I had the songs back, which was a pretty big deal. It's weird how things work out. A month after that, I got a phone call from a guy I sat next to in high school in the choir. And we kept up and done some musical things after that. He called me up and was like, hey, have you heard of this show called The Sing Off? It's an a cappella reality show. And I was like, no, what is that? And he's like, check it out. Ben Folds is one of the judges. So he talked me into going to audition for The Sing Off. That led to another decade of a new career for me for a while. We're working on our children's album. We're doing a Kickstarter for that right now. Little brother's taking a little break, and my older brother, who was taking a break, is now back in for some of the touring we're going to do, and he's also on this children's album. It's a wild ride. It takes a special person, and I'm not trying to toot my horn. It's probably the other way around to choose this career because it's just a roller coaster.
You guys won second place, is that correct?
Second place. I mean, I'd done some pretty good touring, opened up for some big artists, been in front of a lot of people, but it was nothing like that. You know, network TV where 4 or 5 million people had ended up watching that show. I think it was the last episode. Ben Folds pulled a few of us aside. He's like, y'all ready for this? He's like, after the show, you got about 3 months. You're going to be crazy famous everywhere you go. People are going to stop and get pictures with you, and then it's going to stop. I'm Ben Folds, and it happens to me. It's a 3-month thing. It's so weird every time we do this. And he was spot on. It was weird. We left and got to the airport. Crowds were coming up to us. Whoa, this is nuts. I signed a publishing deal with Big Yellow Dog here in Nashville back at the end of 2019. So I've been writing for them, and I'm also an artist putting out a lot of music with them, which I'm super grateful to be there because they are the opposite of Warner Brothers. I've put out 4 albums since I've been there in like 2 years, so which is amazing.
Now, did you get the songs that you wrote for Warner Brothers back as far as copyright? Or
they own quite a bit of them with Warner Chappell, the publishing deal. I got quite a few back too. The 4 songs that came out on that EP, I'm not supposed to re-record them. They own that.
Can you explain your songwriting technique? Is there a specific way that you approach writing a song?
Most days, I kind of let the subconscious do the work. I've become a big fan of mindfulness and meditation through the last few years, and I sort of apply that to starting up songs a lot of the times. Sometimes I go in, I know what I'm going for. I've got an idea. I've got the emotions are there. I'm pumped and like just give me to it. But because I do it most every day now as my job, I like to be quiet for a bit and just see what surfaces. And then I'm a big fan of free association writing. Don't stop typing or don't stop writing until you get a full paragraph. Like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. And the same thing with record here on my phone. I'll have a cool melody idea and I'll just sort of sing what sounds good and then let the subconscious sort of do its thing and then like come up with a concept. Or it's pretty wild sometimes how you'll just start expressing how you feel or something you've seen if you don't really think about it too much. There are also times where I'm going through something like a very, very strong emotion one way or the other. It usually starts with a melody and I'll usually have a word or two that I sort of throw in there. It's kind of like an anchor for it, sort of build around that. I find that co-writing keeps me doing it. I've penciled in myself just to write solo writes. A lot of times I'll be like, well, I think I'm going to go do this today. But if I have a co-write, I'm much more accountable, I think, to actually show up and do the work. 80% of what I write is catering to film and TV. So it's really great to work with a wonderful producer. And now in the age of Zoom, most of my writes have been, they can get to work on the track building, and then I can just sort of have my headphones on and dive into melodies and lyrics and things like that. It's a great way for me to just focus for a bit. That's actually been one of the many good things about Zoom and this new way of working, is like I've developed new systems that help me focus a little bit.
So how did COVID affect you?
I lost a friend. One of my favorite things to do is to go to the grocery store later at night when it's kind of slow and take my time and smile at people. I love just the interaction. Same thing at the park. I have a rule for myself. If I'm running too aggressively to like not smile and say hello to someone, then I have to slow down. It's been really, really hard not seeing people's smiles and reactions and things like that. I haven't had the scare of people passing away, and my best friend from childhood, his mother, who I was really close to as well, she passed away earlier this year. And then just like the divide with the country and people getting down rabbit holes on every side of things. There have been a lot of things that have been very disappointing and discouraging, but there have been so many wonderful takeaways too. I've had more time at home. I was married in November, so I've had some great quality time with my wife and our dog. I've been able to develop systems to where I can focus more on what I do. I mean, it used to be I would always bring guitars and I would sort of write a lot of the music, which I still do quite a bit for some things, but I've been really able to focus on top lining and lyric writing, which has been great for me. I learned how to use recording software. I learned how to use Logic and how to record my vocals and guitars and things like that. But there were a lot of good takeaways. I was able to slow down in some ways. I can stretch myself pretty thin. I've become an avid runner, and that takes a lot of time. I have a hot sauce business with my brother. I do a lot of work with people in recovery, and I started in my early teens. The first time I picked up my first substance, I was like, oh yes, this is what it's like. I no longer have anxiety around people. I felt like I'd found myself when I found alcohol, and then a few more things to the mixture that worked for me very well. It helped me kind of get out of my shell. It helped me be on a reality TV show in front of millions of people without totally flipping out, knowing how big that was. It really served me in a lot of ways, but then it also was awful. Lost a few relationships from poor decision making, and then eventually, I just wore my body down to where, and at the end of 2014, I was in the ER 5 times with my organs starting to deplete, and my liver levels were getting really, really scary. And finally, I had a doctor that told me, he was like, hey, this is going to be what kills you. And it could be a year from now, or it could be 5 years from now, but it won't be too long. The rate you're going. And I was on tour, and every morning I would get up. I would wait for everyone to get off the bus because I was shaking so bad, because I had become highly dependent on a lot of things. I would try to wait till I heard the last footsteps get off the bus, and then I would roll my little curtain out and then roll out of bed and then try to pour a vodka and hot tea just to kind of get my nerves settled. And I was just like, how did I get here? You don't ever see that coming. I was very deflated. People were really, really worried about me at this point. And I would do that every morning. And usually I couldn't keep the first one down, so I would go throw up and then come back and quickly drink vodka to settle my nerves, and then I would try to maintain until showtime and not get too drunk, which I did. Sometimes we were getting a lot of emails saying, please get your singer help. I would go Elvis on stage and just kind of go off in tangents and forget lyrics, and they were just kind of pulling me around. It got to a really bad place. I didn't know how I was going to live without it, because I had sort of trapped myself into this place of thinking that I couldn't have a career, I couldn't have friends, I couldn't be courageous and all these things without the alcohol and other substances I was consuming. And it took that doctor saying, hey, you got about a year to go if you keep doing this. And so I went to the tour manager and pulled my bandmates aside, who they were all so mad at me at that point. I was like, I don't know what to do. I know this is a very, very expensive tour, and we were the headlining act for the Sing Off tour, and I was the lead singer of the headlining act. If I go to a rehab right now, you'll have to cancel the show. So I was like, I'm just going to stick it out, and we had like another month and a half left. And I was like, just give me my gallon of vodka a day. I'm going to push through and hopefully I'll live and hopefully we get through this tour. But as soon as I get home, I'm sober enough. And I did. We had our last show that spring in late April. We did the Ryman. I don't remember playing the Ryman. We did that. I came home and I had another band that I was kind of a rock band that I played piano for called American Hotel. And we did a block party for Lightning 100. And that was April 25th. And then that night, I locked myself in a room. I'd hoarded up some benzos, and I had like the most horrifying and horrible detox for like 3 days. I did it on my own, which I'd never, ever suggest anyone do that. Please go to the hospital because I really, really could have died. But I did that, and I watched Ken Burns' The National Parks on repeat. So I was like shivering in a bed, like dry heaving. Awful things were happening I won't even go into. But I would roll over and then I would see, Yosemite Falls and like Sequoia and all these beautiful things and people, the poetry from John Muir and all these beautiful things happening. And I was, if I live through this, I'm going to go see all these things. I've been doing it. That was 6 years ago. And this is my little pin board. We got 27 now. I just got Biscayne and Everglades last month. It's pretty amazing. So I got back and I didn't know what to do with myself after a couple of months, found help with 12-step stuff, which has been really, really helpful in my life. It's one of the most fulfilling things is actually getting to work with other people, because a lot of people were there for me early on too, which has been great. I have now been sober for 6 years and life's pretty good. I still have anxiety a little bit and I'll still have some blues and life happens, no matter what, but I don't have to reach for something for an immediate fix. I've learned that it's okay to feel a certain way and to ride it out. That's also helped me immensely as an artist. It's not like just, I feel awful. What do I do? Fix it. And like, okay, I feel awful. I'm going to explore this and like sit in it for a while. And it passes. Sometimes it's a little slow and sometimes it's just a bad day. I'm pretty happy these days.
What is creativity to you?
I love that question. The exploration of expression that can be songwriting, poetry, that can be dance, that can be painting, sculpting, walking, running, cooking, you name it. I think it's a way to process your feelings a little bit, sort of like what I was talking about. If I take something that is negative or positive, I explore it. If I'm having a day where everything feels very, very heavy, if I'm able to kind of go in and think about all the things that are happening to my body or my outlook and things like that, if I'm able to write it down or just even sing it without lyrics, the way I feel, that's creativity. And the ability to be able to process those feelings is an ally for sure. It's a dance between intuition and consciousness. I'm not going to write an entire song with just free association, which I have done before, and it's kind of cool. I try to go back and think about what am I writing about, fine-tuning it and narrowing down the route a little bit. Just showing up, logging your experience, being present in the moment, really seeing what's happening around you, and then finding a way to journal that.
What inspires you to create?
Self-discovery is a big one. What's happening in the world, because there's so much happening in the world right now, and how I see it and how I choose to see it. And recovery is a big one. And it's been funny for me too. Like some of the songs I write now, I would never have written a decade ago because it was all foreign to me. I had not experienced the joy that I get to have now. That's been really fun to write some positive and just feel good songs that are coming from a real place, opposed to, ooh, this feels cringy. I actually have a side project with a young man named Sam Bergeson and a band called Cool Cool, and everything sort of has like this indie EDM sort of vibe. I write a lot of songs that I want to run to, which has been really fun as well.
What do you do when you get stuck?
Turn off the critic. That's the biggest one. And the critic has many voices for me. You're an imposter. That's been done before. Nobody cares. You're too old. I quickly have to turn that off. Because I know, I've also had periods of years where I'm just mad at songwriting and I'm like, this is the same old thing. What's the point? What does it matter? And feeling good about myself. Because if I feel good about myself, I'll be able to write. And I'll be able to write. Doesn't mean I'm going to write all positive, feel-good songs. I can still write from a very heavy and go back to places where, it's been pretty dark. If I'm in that spot and it's taken over and the critic's taken over, all bets are off. Number one in my life is taking care of my mental health, keeping up with my recovery stuff. So I do that.
I'd love to hear you play a song for us.
So I put out an EP last year called Forest for the Trees, a collaboration with my friend Tyler Ramsey. Tyler is an unbelievable artist. I highly encourage you all to check out some of his music. He's a North Carolina cat. He was the guitar player for Band of Horses and an exceptional songwriter, guitar player, and singer. He played guitar on this. So if you want to go check out Somewhere Over the Rainbow, check it out. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops way above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why, oh then why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
Thank you so much for letting me interview you for the Creative Push.
Thanks for having me.